What's going on, guys? It's been a minute since I dove into alcohol stoves. So this episode is going to be all about diving back into that topic for a couple of different reasons. And this video is going to be like a hodgepodge of a lot of different things. But today I'm going to show you 3 different types of systems that I've used out in the field. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to show you like a grid of all the different like time trials that I did inside in a controlled environment to kind of show you which system works the best so far for me. So I want to get some of the basics out of the way right away, and the first of which is I think that alcohol stove systems are underrated in a lot of different ways. They are cheaper to run. The fuel doesn't freeze. It works great at pretty much any temperature. It works at elevation, and you can take only what you need as far as fuel goes for your trips. So you're not able to do that. Let me reach over here with your gas can, right? There's flip fuel, so you can do a little bit more of that nowadays to try and transfer fuel from one to the other, but it's a lot easier to just fill up one of these with your alcohol fuel and go out on your trips. And then the only thing that's really kind of a negative with the alcohol stove system is that you're not able to cook fresh food quite as well. It's a little bit harder to get that simmer right when compared to a gas canister stove. So with the basics kind of out of the way, I want to get into the meat and potatoes of this video. So I think there's a big misconception about the fact that you might need a ton of fuel when you go out into the backcountry, and I think that's just not true with the proper system. And you know, I'm here to kind of hopefully dispel that a little bit. Another thing that people think about is that there are too many moving parts, or they're afraid of like burning down the forest because how do I snuff out the flame and all that other kind of stuff. So hopefully I can assuage you here and kind of dispel some of those rumors today. So another thing that I want to say before I get into it here is that just like a sleep system where you kind of have to combo up the correct pad with your quilt or sleeping bag to get down to a particular temperature at night, it's going to be the same thing here with your cook system. So you got to think you have to have a bomb stove comboed with a killer pot in order to have the most efficient system that you can rock with when you're either cooking meals or even something as simple as boiling water for your teas, your coffees, and the boil in a bag meals. So let's get into the 3 different systems that I have for you today. I've tested all of these out in the field and have kind of narrowed down to which one is my favorite so far. First of which that I'm going to talk about here, and I'm really going to be talking about the system in general. So kind of let's go over the stands first. So it's not just a stove; it could be a stove and stand combo. But let's just talk about this one first. This is one that I used like maybe once in the field. Used it at home and did some time trials, but ultimately threw it out very quickly, and that is this Vargo one right here. It's basically just a big thing of like aluminum that you can kind of shape and mold into different shapes. You can do like a diamond or a square and whatnot. The reason why this stinks is because there isn't really a stove that works particularly well with this. It's a little bit taller here, so the flame doesn't necessarily get exactly where you need it to, but ultimately it doesn't do well in the wind. And if you're talking about an alcohol stove system, you need one that is going to perform very well and block out that wind. So this one is not a good option. You can find it cheap on Amazon, but you're going to waste a lot of fuel with that one. The next one that I went over to is this one right here, and you can obviously tell right away that the big con is the overall volume and pack size of this thing. This is the Caldera cone. So let me wrestle this one out to show you what I'm talking about here. And got a rubber band on it. It comes with this plastic piece, which can double as a mug, which is kind of cool, but definitely takes up way too much space in your pack because it doesn't fold down. Again, another sheet of, I don't know if this is aluminum or stainless steel. I think it might be aluminum. I don't even know if it's titanium. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what metal it is, but it's not that heavy. It comes with a dovetail here to slide in and kind of lock it in. This so far has been, believe it or not, the most fuel efficient and burns the hottest as far as the stove stand goes. You know, other than that, I just don't use it because even though it is the most fuel efficient, it's hard to get this in your pack. You want to be able to fit everything into certain kits, right? A lot of people put their their stove kit in with their bear bag, or just off to the side, but they don't want it to take up that much space. And this one is definitely a little bit unwieldy. So unfortunately, I have also migrated away from that stand, I guess you'd say, as well. We haven't even really gotten into the stoves yet. And then the last one here in my Jetboil pot, let me grab this one out. And the one that I'm currently using is this one here. So it's kind of like a micro version of the Caldera cone. This is by a German company called X-Boil. Kind of fits into itself right here. The pot sits on top. There's little feet that go off to the side here. This one so far has been the most compact because, as you can tell when I took it out of the pot here, it fits in your pot and works pretty well for that. So let's get into the stoves real quick to show you the three different stoves that I have compared or comboed up with all these other ones here. First of which, since I was just talking about the X-Boil, is the X-Boil stove. I kind of prefer this method or this style of stove just because they have a little bit of graphite or steel wool or felt in here, and what that does is it prevents spills. So there's one other stove here I'm going to show you in a second that is kind of just open. A lot of people think of that style where you're just filling up, you know, basically like a bowl or a cat can or something like that, where it's just like liquid fuel that's in there. So if you do knock it over, if you have an accident, then it really is going to just flow all over the place. But this graphite or steel wool prevents that. It soaks up the fuel sort of like a sponge. And particularly if you have a lid, like this one has a lid too, you can store a little bit extra fuel in here. I do notice that it does evaporate pretty quickly, but you know, you can cap it here and snuff out the flame really easily, and then keep a little bit of extra fuel in here as well for a short period of time. So it works pretty well to contain it and be a little bit more safe. So kind of going along with that, and what came with my Caldera cone from the company called Trail Designs is this Cogent stove. So pretty similar, it's just smaller in overall diameter here. It's just more of like a micro or UL option. I forget what this material is in here, but it acts similar to the wool or the graphite or whatever it's called, in that it soaks up your fuel so that it doesn't spill and it's easy to snuff out. It's just not as powerful as this one. You're gonna wanna look for something that's a little bit wider and throws off a little bit more heat. However, best one that I found so far, believe it or not, is by Tokes, and this is their Siphon burner. So it's a titanium siphon burner, and what sets it apart is that in here along the entire rim, they have these little cuts and these little outlet holes. And you can actually see on the side wall here that it's cut out as well towards the bottom. So when you light the fuel, it goes up those side channels and out these holes at the top, so it concentrates the flame and it burns ridiculously hot. But however, it doesn't work with that, graphite or that steel wool. So it's just an open bowl here and there's nothing else. So you can knock this one over and, kind of light the whole forest on fire. So you got to be careful with this one here. But I haven't seen anything burn quite as hot as this alcohol stove. So those are the three different kinds of stoves that I can show you, but that all means nothing unless you like combo it up here with a decent pot. So if you're thinking about going UL, you might be thinking about something like this, the Tokes pot series, 550 milliliter, 650. This is the 750. However, the flat bottom doesn't work particularly well with an alcohol stove system. Alcohol stoves are gonna run slower than gas stoves in general. You're gonna be hard pressed to have an alcohol stove beat a gas stove as far as like time trials go. However, the flat bottom really doesn't work that well with a alcohol stove system. It works, but you are gonna burn up more fuel. So instead, I would recommend something like this. I've got the Jetboil stash right here. You don't have to go with this one. There's more budget-friendly options, like one from Fire Maple. I think OEX is another brand, but what you're looking for there is that flux ring here on the bottom, that dispersion of heat. It's going to work better with gas stoves as well, but in particular, to save a little bit more fuel for your alcohol fuel, you're going to want it for that system. All right, so all of that out of the way there, giving you the pro tips on the pots, the stands, and the stoves for your alcohol stove system. Let's get into kind of like what has been my favorite and what has been my least favorite. Obviously, my least favorite, like I had already mentioned, is the Vargo system here. Doesn't do great at protecting your stove from the wind, and you're going to eat up a lot of fuel, and it's going to take you forever to boil your water. So that one's out. My favorite system here to use, and then obviously like you're using something like, again here, the Vargo with a Tokes with a flat bottom, doesn't have the flux ring, that's going to probably be the worst as far as fuel consumption and your time trials go. The best system that I've found so far has been, believe it or not, the Trail Designs, the Caldera cone comboed up with the Tokes Siphon burner. However, this is not my preferred method of my system to use out in the backcountry for my alcohol stove system, because even though it is the most fuel efficient and even though it burns the hottest and my boil times are the lowest with this combo here, it has its negatives, right? You have the overall pack volume of that cone is huge, and then you're not able to really conserve fuel with that Tokes bowl. You kind of have to like measure it out exactly and try to nail it every single time, so you can't really, and if you don't, then you know you're worrying about like, do I pour it back into this fuel bottle here, and then a lot gets wasted, and it's kind of messy, and it kind of goes into all those fears that people talk about, right? Of it having too many parts and being too messy. So I've foregoed that system, and even though it's not as fuel efficient, what I've gone with, and again, that's the Caldera cone with the Tokes Siphon burner comboed up with this Jetboil stash pot. So what I've gone with instead has been the X-Boil system here, because it's more compact, and then I've also gone with the X-Boil alcohol stove because it has that graphite felt in there, right, or that steel wool in there, so it can conserve a little bit more fuel. It doesn't burn quite as hot, but you can snuff the flame really easily. If you have a little bit of fuel left over, it kind of just stays in this sponge here, or it just eventually evaporates. So you don't have to worry about transferring it back over. And if you get the appropriate size for your pot, then it doesn't really have that much of an effect on wind, right? So it protects from the wind a little bit more easily. Now this stove system also has these raised ridges here, so that you can put a pan on it if you wanted to use it for an alcohol stove, or in conjunction with an alcohol stove, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it there. All right, all that out of the way, kind of rambling on here. I want to wrap this one up real quick. So right now I'm going to throw on screen my time trials of what I have gotten so far, and basically goes along with and coincides with what I've been talking about so far. The Caldera cone with the Tokes Siphon burner and the Jetboil stash is definitely the quickest to bring. In this particular example, I was boiling 2 cups of cold tap water, and that was the quickest by about a half a minute. And then the next one down there is my preferred system of what I bring out on the trail, which is the X-Boil stand with the X-Boil stove and the Jetboil stash again. So those two comboed up got you around 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Again, this is under ideal circumstances, not super windy or anything like that. So that definitely will still play an effect, even with better systems that can shield it from the wind a little bit better. And then everything else kind of funnels below that by another 30 seconds or more. So that is it. That's going to be a quick roundup here. I was kind of going in a lot of different directions here, but hopefully you will be piqued and your interest is piqued a little bit more to try out alcohol stove systems. I live in California. It is banned in a lot of different places now in America, and I think that is kind of wrong. It shouldn't be. We just need to be a little bit safer with how we use these systems, and not be sloppy in the field. Overall, what I found in general is that running an alcohol stove system is about half of the cost of using your gas canister stoves. This, under optimal conditions, is around a quarter for each 2-cup boil, and then with my alcohol stove system, it's like 12.5 cents. So in the long run, that definitely builds up. Doesn't sound like a lot in the short run there, just cents, but in the long run, it definitely builds up. So that's going to do it for me. on this one here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like alcohol stove systems, let me know all about it in the comments down below. I want to know your time trials. I want to know if you got as geeky and nerdy as I did with it, or if you have a certain system that you like to use, let me know all about it. I want to hear about it. Let's get the discussion going for it and kind of get this PSA going for alcohol stove systems a little bit more. That's going to do it again for me on this one. Thank you again for watching. And remember, if you had it off grid, make sure you do research and you make it a safe one, and I'll catch you on the next one.